All right, I'm ready.
Okay, clothes is everywhere, right? We see it every day, and we tend to want to keep it on every single day. Unless you're like a nudist or a streaker like Mr. Roberts here.
Oh.
Okay, continuing on. We use it to express ourselves, identify our profession, and more importantly, we use it to stand out. We use it to stand out from the crowd. Now, this is my audience analysis, for the first question I asked, how many shirts do each of y'all have? And based on that, I grouped you into 3 brackets. The red is where you fall between 1 to 49 shirts, which 6 of y'all fell under. The light brownish bar, you said you fall under like 50 to 99 shirts, and the rest of you, which were 7, you had over 100 shirts. Now added up, that's about 1,446 shirts. Now, the second analysis question that I asked was, if you knew a piece of clothing that you wanted was made by an exploited worker, 6 of y'all said yes, and 13 of you said no. That pretty much gives an idea how diverse our train of thoughts are. Now, most of you have a good idea where most of your clothing originates from, like wool or any other animal products, plant products like cotton, or some kind of synthetic material produced in some chem lab. All of those are right, but what I want to talk about today are the garment workers that are exploited. Now, before I continue on, most of you all are wondering, what is my personal connection to this? Well, let me tell you. Back when I still lived in the Philippines, my auntie took me to the market where I ran off when she turned her back to me. Eventually, I got to an alley where I saw a bunch of kids coming out of a warehouse, which I saw was full of sewing machines, and they were carrying these bundles of clothing, which they then carried to a man on a pickup truck, which they traded for Jello packs. And back then, I was addicted to Jello packs, so I ignored the stranger danger rule, and I came up and asked for one. For simplicity's sake, he basically told me to screw off and to come back in 3 years. I was like 3 years old at the time, so I asked if I said yeah, would he give me a Jello pack? And before he could answer, my auntie appeared and cussed him out, like literally, and dragged me home where I was grounded. 2.5 years later, I was in America. After I got past the learning curve, which took me a couple of years, I watched lots of documentaries. Eventually, I got to one about exploitive labor, and after I watched it, I was like, I almost screwed up my life because of a Jello pack. So that's why whenever I eat out, I avoid the Jellos. Now, based on my accumulated knowledge and what I learned in the past few days, I want to talk to you about what exactly is exploitive labor, what the heck the government and law enforcement are doing, and the causes of it and the effects on it on society and the workers themselves. First off, what is it? According to the International Labor Organization or ILO, it's work obtained from a person under threat, real or perceived, and which the person has not offered themselves voluntarily. What they're saying basically is that you work out of fear for your life, your family, and your livelihood. And by livelihood, it means that in this case, that if you lose that job, you and your family will basically starve. Now, ILO is like a UN agency that focuses on ending child labor, forced labor, etc. That's their symbol right there. Okay, women and children are the most vulnerable to lead to exploitation in the garment industry simply because they could be paid less, especially children. And women, by women I mean women from the rural side, countryside, where job opportunities are often very limited and basically they're forced in just to go into that job because it's easier to go into. You don't need prior education, you just need 2 hands, 2 legs, and how to follow orders. Now, these sweatshops are very, very hazardous because they barely meet any safety requirements, and if one existed here and a building inspector would have looked at it, they'd probably have a heart attack. Now, simple, self-explanatory, the owners and managers at the top gets most of it, and the workers have to divide whatever's left of the profits. Again, self-explanatory. Greed is there's a reason why greed is one of the 7 deadly sins, and this is why. Managers and owners will do anything to ensure that they have maximum profits, including hiring thugs to threaten or beat up the workers and whoever wanted to organize the labor unions. Now, who can possibly have the power to stop this? Is it a bird? Is it the plane? It's the government! But no, even though most countries have labor laws, including North Korea, it's hard to enforce simply because corruption is rampant or the society as itself is destabilized. And most importantly, it's very, very lucrative. According to an article from 5038, 4 million Bangladesh citizens are employed in the garment factory industry. In government eyes, that's 4 million people to tax and 4 million people not under government handouts. And to give you an idea how big Bangladesh's export industry is, the garment industry accounts for 80% of total exports. And that's by the Transparency International. This will give you an idea how corruption and countries with large garment industry correlate. The top 4 countries that export to the US are China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Indonesia. China, Bangladesh, and Vietnam are like in the middle of the pack, but Bangladesh is like trailing badly. And this is also by the Transparency International for 2014. Now, how about the law enforcement? What are they doing? Basically, they're in the same basket. General mistrust comes from the fact that the more money you have, the more probability that the police officers will be on your side. And considering that workers get paid about $20 a day, or was it a week? Yeah, it's very hard for a worker to stand up to that. And that some police officials skim off the budget or take off with it entirely, which makes recruitment makes training recruitment difficult, and makes officers more vulnerable to bribery. Now, what the causes of exploitative labor? First off, we want affordable clothing. Then poverty. It's decision. Would you rather work for low pay and ensure that your family has enough food to eat, or would you go to get an education, and hope that your family survives? Again, greed of the government and law enforcement officials, which I talked about in the last slides, and leaders' desire for economic growth. By that, I mean they could use the export fees they get and bribery fees to shift it to other government industrial sectors like healthcare, build up infrastructure. Now the effects. Again, I want to point to you the empowerment of women. By that I mean, basically, since a majority of workers are exploited workers are women, they get paid, but they have to send money back to their family in the countryside. But that allows them to spend the rest, whatever they don't give, to further their education, provide for themselves, and remain independent of relatives. And also, it strengthens the economy of the host country. And now, these pictures are from the Raza Plaza collapse in April 2013. And this picture was from Listverse, which I remembered exclusively as one of the top 10 photos that shocked the world. This is a guy hugging, I guess, his mom or family relative. And that's the collapse and outside view of the collapse. Over 1,100 people died and 2,500 injured, according to a Wikipedia article. And now, I hope I give you a brief understanding of what is exploitative labor and the government and law enforcement responses and what the cause and the effects are of them. Now, this isn't supposed to be a guilt trip, but I just want to inform you of something that seems to only capture world attention through tragedies and disasters. Now, these are my last pair of words. Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and the people who mean to be their own government must be themselves with the power which knowledge gives. By James Madison. And this is my works cited.